Hey, what is up, everybody? Um, I know this is a bit of a different video than from what I usually do and stuff, but I just feel like that for today, I do something a little bit different compared to the videos that I usually make on my YouTube channel because this is a something a true crime story uh, that I've been kind of like studying upon though, and I thought this was something that like important that we need to talk about, especially if you happen to be a parent of a young child, or if you're going to be one pretty soon, or even if you're just an uncle or an aunt and stuff like that. Though, of course, like even if you're like either of those things, this is still like important to like keep in mind though, like especially if you actually happen to take care of your niece or nephews for whatever reason and stuff like that. So so anyway, so what this story I'm about to talk to you about though, yeah, like it's gonna like blow like your minds and pretty shocking though, and this is also something that like all like parents and guardians need to be aware of because you'll never know exactly as to what could happen though. So so yeah, yeah. Even though I myself am just like an uncle and stuff, but I still think that this is important for me to like know and stuff, especially if I ever have to like take care of any of my own nieces or nephews in the future for whatever reason, like especially if they're young and stuff and all. But anyway, this story is about a social worker who sexually molested a 13-year-old boy that was under her care. Yup. Of course, we've most of us have heard these types of stories where it's like teachers involved, but for some of you like me, this is probably the first time hearing something like this from a social worker. I know for me it is. Yeah, I've heard about these kind of stories before, but it's where teachers were like involved in starting these situations, but I never heard anything like this coming from a social worker until now. So yeah, which is which is why this is something I want to like bring up and stuff, so that way any of you parents out there raising younger children can like take precautions with this if you ever like get to a point for whatever reason, if you want to take your kid to seek professional help and stuff and all, which is also like it's important to like keep like a pay good attention to this like whenever you do go through these things, because like I said, you'll never know what could happen, especially with uh, the world is these days. but but anyway but anyway, let's go ahead and jump right into the story. So let's take ourselves back to 3 years ago, 2023, where a social worker named Peyton Shires was assigned to counsel a 13-year-old boy in Columbus, Ohio. Apparently, the boy was having a lot of behavioral issues at school, so his mother took him to the National Youth Advocate Program for help, where from there he met Peyton Shires, who just graduated fresh out of college as well as receiving her social work license in order to be able to work as a social worker in the state of Ohio. And so when his mother like brought him in there, of course that's where of course the boy and Shires came came in contact with each other. And at first at first everything was professional. I mean, like everything was clean and professional, where everything was going good. There were no red flags of any kind whatsoever at first. However, all of that did ended up changing eventually when one particular day, the boy's mother, uh, or sorry, How all this started changing though was that when one day the boy came home in a fresh new outfit that Shires had purchased for him after spending an entire day at the mall together, which is a pretty awkward thing to have going on, especially if a social worker is involved in that. Well, when confronted by the boy's mother, Shires brushed it off by claiming that when she was younger, she had a social worker of her own that would do things like that for her. So she wanted to do the same for this boy that she was counseling. So the mother did ended up letting it slide for that particular purpose, but still kept a closer eye on the pair. And good thing she did, because in the next part, the 13-year-old boy started to act out of character, and he would also sneak out of the house at night just to go meet with Shires. And but then eventually, the boy's mother getting ended up getting a hold of his phone as she was scrolling through a whole bunch of text messages between the boy and Shires, where while the mother was scrolling through those messages, Shires asked the boy if his mom seen any videos or photos or if they've been deleted and stuff. And then while scrolling into those messages, she the mother ended up finding a video of both her son and the social worker actually doing it. Yep, she found a video of those two just doing it while she was scrolling up on the boy's phone looking at these messages to confirm her suspicions. And from there, when she found out everything was going on, she took all that straight to the police and stuff, which then eventually led to Shire's arrest. But before she was arrested, there was this three-way call that was set up by the police, where this phone call was between both was both with the social worker and the boy's mother and stuff, where at this phone call, Shires admitted to the sexual assault and everything else that was going on, but what she didn't know was that on the mother's end, police officers were actually secretly listening in to hear her confession, and once they've heard everything, that led to Shire's first arrest. On October 6, 2023, Peyton Shires was then arrested for unlawful sexual misconduct with a minor. And when she got arrested, she was brought in for questioning with detectives, where she even refused to speak to them unless she had her lawyer with her. So when that happened, of course, the interview was then over, where she was then taken to jail and then was released a couple days later. And you would probably think that the story ends from there, but what if I tell you that it gets worse? Which actually does. It does eventually get worse, because she got arrested twice. But before we talk about that, there is some additional information I would like to give out first. During the time when all that was going on, Shires was engaged and was also already raising a child or two at the time and stuff and all. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe that they had another child that was somewhat due at some point. I'm not so sure. I don't know the full story to that. All I know was that during the time when she was committing this sexual assault and everything, she was engaged and was raising at least a couple children from what I know of based on when I did my research and stuff. But anyways, so so there was that. But get this though. Her fiance at one point was also in jail for similar crimes involving children. And of course, it didn't take him long to figure out what this situation with Shires. And once he learned about everything of it, he was extremely furious with her that he immediately ended their relationship from there, with no chance of getting back with her anytime soon. Yeah, that is very sad and stuff. Especially that, like, if you were not only engaged, but also that, like, you were also, like, a parent at the time and stuff when you sexually molested a 13-year-old. Yes, definitely not a good situation to be in. Now, now back to the real story. So again, as I already mentioned, Peyton Shires was then released after a couple days later after she was arrested. However, when she got out of jail, the life she previously had was no more. This meant she was let go from her job she studied in college to get. She no longer had a relationship with her fiance, and of course, she was shunned by the community big time. So at that point, this caused her to be in so much anger, and as well with so much anger that she had two things in her mind: suicide and revenge. She didn't want to just take her own life, but she also wanted to kill the boy's mother, as she felt like that she ruined her life by reporting this to the police. And how did Shires do this? Well, on October 26th of that time, 20 days after her first arrest, Peyton Shires ended up going to the home of the boy and his mother with a gun, where she even called up the mother saying that she was outside of the house and was there to kill her. Luckily, nobody was home at the time, and police eventually did ended up getting called up that that she was there and that she was going to kill her and stuff. And when the police got there, of course, they were swarming outside the house to confront Peyton, and this went on for like hours. I believe it lasted for like 4 or 5 hours and stuff. But I mean, this ended up going on until it got completely dark outside. Where the police were surrounding the house. With Shires, uh, as she already had the gun in her hand. You know, already aiming at her head with the finger on the trigger, where police had to do what they could to get her to stop doing those foolish actions and stuff. Where not to mention the SWAT team had to get involved as well. So after this went on for hours and stuff. Well, she eventually did surrender, but before she did that, she did ended up firing the gun, which of course caused the police to swarm in to arrest her. Luckily, nobody was injured when she fired the gun. And so after this went on for hours, it was then over. Shires then finally surrendered, where she just then received her second arrest. And this second arrest was for intimidation of a witness or a victim, as well with inducing panic, which all that together resulted as a bond violation, where her bond was immediately revoked. So when she got arrested again, she was brought back to the same interrogation room, where she had another interview with two detectives, where where this time they were actually able to uncover things a lot more as to how things happen and why they did. Excuse me. where that interview went on for about 2.5 hours, where it was like a 2.5 hours like of detectives trying to get the information that they needed from Shires as to how everything happened and why. Excuse me. There is also a video that on YouTube. You can always try to look it up for yourself as well. So from there on, as we fast forward, then around May 2024, Peyton Shires pled guilty on all charges, 4 counts of unlawful sexual misconduct with a minor, 1 count of inducing panic, and as well as 1 count of intimidation of a witness or victim. There was also a charge for the discharged firearm when from when she fired the gun, but for some reason that charge ended up being dropped. So I don't know what happened with that one. But anyway, she pleaded guilty on all of those charges, and when she did, while she was in court, she also made like an apology speech for everything she did. But the judge did not hold back for what he had to say about that. He specifically told Shires that she's the adult. I mean, she is responsible to have the boundaries, where she was trained professionally to prevent things like that from happening, in which she had failed to do. So, yeah. And so from there, Peyton Shires was given a prison sentence of 4 years and 9 months. However, based on some other research that I've done, it is possible that she could face up to almost 30 years in prison. And if you think that's all there is to it, well, it really isn't, because there's also more that goes along with her prison sentence. She is also required to register as a 2-tier sex offender about every 6 months for the next 25 years. She was also forced to surrender her social work license for good, which means she is no longer ever allowed to work as a social worker again because of what she did. And honestly, that serves her right and stuff and all, because it doesn't matter at this point that that's what she studied in college. I mean, she is not ever allowed to work as a social worker again. And not only that, I don't even know how she's ever going to be able to find employment at anywhere ever again. Not even at a place like McDonald's or Walmart or whatever and stuff and all, since now she has this big fat charge on her record, which will stay in effect for her for the rest of her life. And also, the boy and his mother ended up filing a civil lawsuit against not only Shires, but also to her former employer, the National Youth Advocate Program. And once that lawsuit was established, the NYAP made this response. It went something like, I believe it went something like this. Protecting children is everyone's responsibility. The National Youth Advocate Program is saddened by the situation involving one of our former employees and a young person served by our organization. And for this lawsuit, they're demanding at least $50,000 for all the damages that have been done. So yeah. And this is a pretty like a huge thing right there. So yeah. And after all this that happened, like from like a few years ago and stuff and all, with her prison sentence, I don't know where everything else falls out now. I mean, lastly, from what I've heard, based on some research, is that sometime after she pleaded guilty, she was then sent to some rehab facility for women and stuff. there in the state of Ohio. And then eventually she had to go back in court for regarding to her prison sentence. So other than that, that's it. I don't know what else is gonna happen with Shires in the future. All I know as of right now is she still continues to sit in that facility where she has plenty of time to reflect on her actions, which of course it's going to affect her for the rest of her life. Where at this point she has immediately ruined her life, going from a trustworthy social worker to a child molester. So, and that pretty much concludes the story from there. So, what are your guys' thoughts on this whole thing? I will go ahead and share you mine. Uh, I do believe that for whatever reason that led to this whole thing and stuff and all, she like she she needed to better approach to this whole thing, like in more of a professional way, because I feel like that based on some of the training that she was given as a social worker, if things were to get out of hand, of course she would be legally to use all the professional skills and everything that she learned and developed to prevent crazy situations like this from happening and stuff, in which she had failed to do. So, and I do feel so sorry for the victim's family, the boy and his mother for everything that they went through because of her and stuff and all. And and hopefully that whatever the family is up to now and stuff and all, hopefully they're doing a lot more better now, or that they found another trustworthy social worker that's actually helping them a lot better, unlike Shires that was supposed to be that kind of particular person, in which ended up being the opposite. So so yeah. And I sure hope that that teenage boy would never have to go through something crazy like that again. As we're as now, since Shires is in jail, of course she will not be able to do that to him or any other child ever again and stuff. So yeah. I know that was like a lot to uncover and stuff, but this was like a pretty like an important story that I wanted to bring up. So, especially that if you're a parent who is currently taking your child to a social worker seeking for help, or if you're going to do that at some point based on whatever it is that you got going on between you and them in your lives, which is really none of my business and stuff and all, but whichever of those kind of particular scenarios that you're in right now, like if you're a parent that is currently taking your child to see a social worker, or a parent that's eventually going to at some point, like please keep a closer eye on the connection between both your child and that counselor, because like I said, you'll never know what could happen and stuff and all. I mean stuff like this has happened before, and there's and sadly it kind of still goes on today. So yeah. So yeah, these are things that you need to be uh, aware of and stuff and all, as we never know what this whole world has in store for us with the way it is nowadays, unfortunately. So, but anyways, so there you guys have the story and stuff and all. So yeah, let me know your guys' thoughts and everything as well, and thanks for tuning in and stuff and all. So So you guys like stay awesome, have a good day, no matter where you're from and stuff and all. And and until we meet again, peace out.